Here are the top 5 things I want to see change at Spurs. Now, we could be here forever, so we have narrowed it down to just 5. I'm going to start with something that's really important to me, which is the change of mentality of the club. Now, this is from top to bottom. It's something that has been a problem, I would say, probably the entire 29 years I've supported this team. It's the way in which the club is run. Obviously, this does tie into ownership and how it kind of trickles down from the top. It's about the ambition, it's about the desire, and everything is linked to this, in my opinion. In terms of the mentality, I think that's anything from recruitment to how you approach cup games to how you do well on the pitch, the bar that you set for yourself when you come to Tottenham Hotspur. So for me, that is a very pivotal thing that needs to be changed. I think from the ownership side, with the mentality, it's about running the club less like a business and more like a football club. It's knowing, who to invest in, the right players, not just, where you can get a cheap deal. It's about bringing the right type of mentality to the club and the right players that can kind of further the club, not just, come in and keep it at the level it's at. We want to be moving forward. And that does come from the top down. And not only that, it's having the mentality to, work hard, to push, make sure you're in a cup final. And when you get there, don't always be the bridesmaid, which Tottenham have always been. It's time to kind of get the duck off the back. This is a club that hasn't won a trophy in 15 years, but goes out of the Carabao Cup early doors, the FA Cup early doors, and tries to just focus on the Champions League. Now, moving into this season, obviously Tottenham don't have European football of any kind, which, despite the fact that that might affect the board financially, it's actually a good thing because we have a new manager once again, and the mentality shift should be, let's focus on those cups, let's focus on the FA Cup, let's focus on the Carabao Cup, let's see what we can do and actually try and win something here. And if we can improve to a point where we get back into Europe, then so be it. But a lot of things are linked with that mentality. Change of recruitment, I touched on it a little bit earlier. It's about the type of players you bring in. Spurs, the last time they had a big money sale was kind of in the Gareth Bale era, and of course they brought in 7 different players. The only one that springs to mind of being any type of success was Christian Eriksen. Of course, Eric Lamela, but he also has since left the club too. And they've had these opportunities where they've had this money to reinvest back into the squad, and rather than buy 2 or 3 players or 1 or 2 players of good quality, a substantial amount of money, they'd rather split it up and buy 7-20 million pound players from all these different leagues that eventually go on and end up sitting on the bench being squad players and then being sold for less money than they bought. So for me, the recruitment really needs to be on point. They need to look and see what is needed. We've been crying out for new centre halves for probably about 2 seasons now, 1 or 2 of them. A creative midfielder. We never replaced Christian Eriksen. He's been away from the club for 2.5 years, I believe now, maybe even longer. So that recruitment is really important, and finding a fit that you don't have to spend loads of money. I've said it so many times before on this platform, but you don't have to spend loads of money. You don't have to go and spend, 60, 70 million on a player or 100 million pounds. It's just about being smart. And I always look at the way that Brighton run their club, Brentford run their club. They do not break the bank for anything and anyone, especially Brighton. And it's just about finding the right player so that when someone goes, you've already identified the key and the cog that is going to come in, and it's going to be a seamless transition from losing that player into having a new one. And whether that comes with youth, there's no issue with that at Tottenham. People like myself, Spurs fans, I believe, are really open to having young talent come through, whether that's from our academy or from abroad, but it's being given the time to be able to do that and also come in and let them prove themselves and make sure that your recruitment is done so well that you have no doubt that that player is going to fit perfectly into the system. Another thing I'd like to see change is stability. Since Pochettino left, he was with Tottenham for 5.5 years. Since that, we've had no stability whatsoever, and it's something that has always happened with Tottenham. Going back past Poch, I think we had Tim Sherwood, we had AVB. I may have actually missed a manager as well in that time, but before that was Harry Redknapp, and before that was Juan de Ramos, and before that was Martin Jol. So Jol, we had a bit of stability, and we did very well under Martin Jol. Harry Redknapp, we had 3-4 years of stability. Did very well under him, and of course Pochettino. But in those periods of time where the board has done a knee-jerk reaction and sacked a manager, it hasn't always worked out. And of course there are grounds potentially like Nuno Espirito Santo, that was never going to be the right fit. But the sacking of Pochettino was a complete knee-jerk 3 months after getting us to a Champions League final, and there were many things around that. But we do move on. We won't digress into that. But it's just having that stability back. And of course, now we have appointed Ange Postecoglou. I, for one, am very excited to see what he can do. He seems like a great guy. He seems like a great manager. From what I've seen him achieve Celtic, as well as been very successful in the J League in Japan and also in Australia. And I'm not too fussed that he doesn't come with, the big name or the big expectations. We've had that with Jose and Conte. This is not the type of club where, managers like that thrive, and it just creates toxicity. So I think it's really important that we have some type of stability now with the manager. Stop chopping and changing. Last season we had 3 different managers alone, Conte, Stellini and Ryan Mason, and that just it doesn't breed a good state of mentality for the team. It doesn't breed anything but toxicity, really, and that does stem out to the fan base. So for me, we need to stick with Ange, hopefully give him time, let him see how he goes, and we did do that with Pochettino. It wasn't perfect at the start, and we were nearing to a point where maybe Levy would have knee-jerked, but he didn't at that point, and Harry Kane changed it and turned it all around at Villa that day, and the rest is history. But I think that now we've got a manager, we've sorted that side of things out. It's really, really important to make sure that we try and form some types of stability from the management perspective. The cups, I did mention it earlier on in the show, but I think that the cups are super important. There's never been an emphasis on, winning a Carabao Cup or winning an FA Cup, and even in Europe, the Europa Conference League, Tottenham have always felt they're too good when they've been in it. Realistically, I know we got to a Champions League final, but that was, I think out of a lot of luck that we managed to get there more than the quality. But Tottenham, when they've been in the Europa League, there hasn't been that much fight and determination, as I mentioned, the Conference League. And in terms of domestic trophies, Tottenham have gone out in the first or second rounds pretty much every time in the last 3 or 4 years. And there needs to be an emphasis on that. Tottenham haven't won a trophy in 15 years. They need to try and break this deadlock somehow. And this season, when they don't have any European football, this is a really important time. Ange Postecoglou coming in, you can really make something of yourself here and have that focus on the cups. And whether or not it comes from a higher power, because I don't believe all the managers Tottenham have had would have necessarily said that they don't want to play their starting 11 in the cups. I'm thinking that maybe came from the top because we were in other European competitions at the time, which still weren't prioritised. But Ange Postecoglou has an amazing opportunity here with no European football to really make sure that your strongest 11 plays in those games. You give it everything as if it was a regular game, a Premier League game or a final, every single game, because he needs to win a trophy. And it's a relatively smooth journey to win a Carabao Cup. It's only, I believe, 3 or 4 games before you get to the final, and put all your emphasis on an FA Cup and a Carabao Cup, because that would be a really successful season if Tottenham could pick up 1 or 2 trophies. And I say it like it's easy. Of course it's difficult, especially when you're Tottenham, to win a trophy. But I think there has to be a lot of emphasis on that, especially this season while there is no European football for Tottenham. And last but not least, my one dream wish, which I have included, would be a change of ownership, but I have put that in there as a dream. Listen, it's not to discredit everything that Daniel Levy has done for the club and ENIC in terms of building this as a viable business, profits. It's fantastic the way that the club is run in terms of a business aspect. And of course we have a lovely stadium and training ground, but from what we've seen over the years, obviously just the way that everything has been handled, managerial-wise, mentality, stability, all the things I've mentioned, attitude, it just hasn't lived up. And I think that would really be a dream scenario. I know it's not going to happen, and that's why I've left it till last. But I think it would be wonderful to, to have a change of ownership and have a board come in, a chairman, director of football that want the best for the club in a footballing perspective and not just the business side. And it would be actually my one wish that ENIC and Levy, as they will stay on, kind of do put that emphasis into it on the pitch. It's never too late to try and change that. And, they have the same type of money that the likes of Roman Abramovich used to have, and they could invest their own money if they wanted to. But of course, they just try and keep maximum profit for minimum input. So yeah, I would love to see a change of ownership, but until that time, I can just wish for all the other things: change of mentality, stability, recruitment, and in the cups. But I look forward to, hopefully, now that we have had a few changes in terms of director of football, Fabio Paratici is no longer in charge. I believe it's Scott Mills that has come in, and he will also take charge. But it's just having the ownership and the director step back and just let people do their jobs, let them recruit who they want to recruit. Because if you take the model of someone like Brighton and you could implement that to Tottenham, then I believe that Tottenham would be much more successful than they are at the moment. So who knows what will happen this season, but surely it can't be as bad as last.